Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players Podcast. This is our show for Monday, December 7th. I am your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker. Once again, special edition of the show today. A little bit later on, we're going to have our annual Degenerate Gift-Giving guide. But before we do that, we are bringing back to the In the Money airwaves the regular co-host of this show. He is coming to you from the planet Texas in his familiar setting there that the folks watching along on YouTube can see. He's the people's champion. He's Jonathan Kinchin. What's up, JK?
PTF, what's going on? Yep, the last Fox show was Saturday for the year. So hanging out now until February, I think, maybe January. We'll see what happens, but looks like February when we'll kick back off. So a little bit of free time now. I don't know what I'm going to do with all this video equipment.
I was going to ask, what do you, does this mean we're going to see a run of JK plus ones coming up? You're going to actually take some time to rest and relax, and the other projects you might want to get involved in?
No, I'll probably just be hanging out. We'll do some JK plus ones. I'm actually going to do one tomorrow. I haven't even told you yet. I'm going to have the producer of the Travers show, my good friend Terrence Thiegy, and the host of that show, Lafitte Pinkai III, we're gonna do a video podcast going over that hour and a half episode of the Travers show.
Awesome.
And kind of some behind the scenes of this, that, and the other. Lafitte pointing out some of his mistakes, and Terrence talking about how there was drama in the truck during this moment, stuff like that. So it's going
to be a watch, like essentially a watch along.
Yep.
Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. I've seen that. My buddy Chris Jericho has done some of that on his podcast with like old matches. So it'll be like him and Lance Storm, and they're talking about, folks can be watching along on YouTube, and they're talking about, the move they blew or whatever. I love that idea. I can't wait. So it'll be a YouTube, that'll be video as well. Obviously.
Yeah. Craig, producer Craig's going to put that in the mix for us tomorrow. So we're going to get that done tomorrow. It should be fun.
You keep outdoing yourself with these creative ideas. Hey, I don't want to bury the lead too much. I'm going to let you share the big news from the In the Money media empire we got this weekend, JK.
Yeah, no, it was exciting. Obviously, these fan choice awards are new and fun, and it's cool because it's the people that are voting. It's not some committee of know-it-alls, and it's fun. It's fun to know that we were awarded the best podcast. So for the Players Podcast, but I view it more as a kind of a network thing. I think that's kind of the way that I believe that it was voted on is we have so much good content on the airways. It kind of lifted us up. We were in the conversation last year, and the difference between last year and this year is we've got the Red Bull Rewind rolling. We've got JK plus one rolling. We got the Matty Ice show. We got Nick Luck.
Talk racing to me.
Those things make a difference, I think. And so I know you and I both. I can speak for both of us when I say we're extremely honored and thankful for all the people that voted for us, and it's a pretty cool honor.
It's a good thing it wasn't a committee of know-it-alls, because we probably would have been nowhere. But fortunately, the fans, the listeners, there's a reason we thank them at the end of every show. And it's not only because they make the shows fun to do, they support us in so many ways. And what a thrilling way for us to be supported. Honor that means all the much more because of the strength of competition in the category. And also, I think, like you said, JK, really just an endorsement of everything we have going on here. Naomi and Nick and Spencer and Matt. It's really an award that belongs to the whole family here. So thanks again to everybody who did that and who participated in the ABR Fan Choice Awards. I'm sure if you go over to America's Best Racing right now, you can see the full list of winners.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And I also wanted to say congratulations to Maggie Wolfendale as well for winning Best Analyst. That was really cool.
I'm sure you completed the exacta, JK.
Oh, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe as long as it stayed in the family, I was happy with that. And it's funny. I don't know if you saw, there was a tweet the other day exchange between Maggie and Tom. Tom Amos was also nominated. Maggie said, Tom, you had my vote. Tom said, you had mine. And I said, well, I'm glad I voted for myself.
I didn't see that, but the honesty, JK, I'm sure was very much appreciated. I should say you mentioned that these awards, I think this is the second year of them, and I do think it's wholly appropriate that got to give a shout out to the year one winner and still the most consistent and best when it comes to audio and horse racing, our buddy Steve Bick. But I like the idea, if he wins the inaugural one, I feel like it's okay for us to come and sneak one in year number two.
The godfather of horse racing radio, and he definitely deserves as many trophies as they're making in all these different categories.
And then lo and behold, I hear on the stairs we have a surprise guest, Muggsy the handicapping Labrador, deigning to join us today.
The award, the ABR award-winning handicapping Labrador.
Best podcasting dog. You think Muggs would win that one in a walk? I would hope so. So. Let's talk about some racing, JK. It's been an interesting couple of weekends in terms of stakes races, and we'll start with the gossip-worthy race, I'm going to call it, this year's Cigar Mile. Before we get into any of the silly aspects of this story, let's just talk about True Timber. When I was on Sky yesterday, we talked a lot about this race. People often talk about horses for courses, that idea. True Timber, it might be more specific than that. When you look at the body of his work in his career, his three best races, I feel like, are his three Cigar Miles, and he gets the job done in impressive fashion at the end of the day, winning in the slop with a 99 Beyer speed figure. What did you make of this effort?
I think the biggest thing I took away from it, no offense to the horse, and usually in these situations, the horses get all the attention, but I can't help but feel like the headline here is Kendrick Carmouche getting his first grade one. I thought that Kendrick's interview after was so heartwarming and exciting, and I'm almost shocked that this is his first grade one win, just considering how productive of a rider that I think he is, battling in obviously the toughest colony in the world. And for him to get this opportunity to have the meet he was having up until that point, and then just the way that you could tell how much it meant to him afterwards, I think is really a special moment, and the part of this Cigar Mile that stands out the most to me. As far as the horse is concerned, Jack Sisterton, he's a little sneaky, showing up in these big races and having his horses run well. Good for him, and it's got to be a thruster in his career. But True Timber is a horse that I actually didn't like very much. Our friend Eric Violet was playing in the Cigar Mile Challenge on Naira Bets, and he built a huge big play around True Timber, but did not have Snapper Sinclair in second. A performer gets up into second. Eric's your champion of that contest. So I didn't have a lot of positive thoughts about True Timber before the race, but he ran well and he opened up and he did it impressively.
And in such an open division, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I have no idea who's going to show up at the Pegasus at this point in a few weeks' time. But you'd have to imagine he'd be among the morning line choices if he did. I love you underlining the Jack Sisterson success. He's definitely a trainer to continue to be paying attention to. And you mentioned about Carmouche winning the grade one. Had he won a riding title in doing that? I'm committing that sin where I asked the question I don't know the answer to. Had he won a riding title in New York before this Aqueduct Fall title that he just won?
Oh, I'd be shocked if the answer was yes. Just the way that I think it all unfolded, and he's riding lights out this week. A lot of with a lot of the guys being gone and this, that, and the other. I don't think he's won one before. It feels like Ramon, Manny, an Ortiz brother have won all of them for the last, however long you'd like to think, maybe 10, 15 years. That was before Kendrick even came to New York.
All right, now let's talk about the silly aspect of the story. And this might be one, racing and media have like a little bit different relationship than other sports, I think, where the participants are pretty darn savvy and know exactly when they're on the record versus when they're off the record. I have a feeling Shug McGahee would probably want these comments back. That did not make him look very good. I think they could maybe be charitably characterized. And I love Shug McGahee. I think these comments could be charitably described as whining about Performer, who for me lost all chance at the break. I thought Performer, I made the wise guy case for King Guillermo just based on the big figure he ran 6 months ago and what I thought was the overall weakness of the field. I did think he had a chance. I used him, and then I used a lot of Performer. I sort of gave up on the Performer piece of things out of the gate. And the quotes from Shug, I don't even want to read them. Again, I don't know how seriously we're really supposed to take them, but seemingly annoyed that the race happened so late in the year, but the race traditionally was just 1 week earlier. JK, I'll just ask it like this. What was he on about?
Well, I think that, look, don't ask me questions seconds after I get beat in a big race. I'm irritable. I start sweating. I am mad. I needed in the Demoiselle, not the Demoiselle, in the Remsen, 10 for 10. Jose was on the lead, and this is what I do now when I'm mad at riders. I have a group text with Richie Mcgliorey and Gary Stevens, so I let them make sure that I'm in line when I have to say something about a rider. I
dropping names 2 at a time here, JK. What's going on?
I texted them, Jose doing that thing again where he waits to get, and they both disagreed with me. So I'm glad that was my therapy in that moment, right? So I just think that,
just to clarify for folks who don't know, because there is an interesting point here. You were suggesting that he didn't go fast enough in the race,
and that he waited too long. And Gary actually pointed out to me that a lot of times you can't tell what you can't see from the TV what you have underneath you. And good riders know what they have, and they're waiting as long as possible because they know they're empty. And that's fine. So I respect that. But my point being is that putting a mic in someone's face after a disappointment like that, it's obviously not something that is going to make for the best sound bites all the time. And I think that maybe, like you mentioned, I think maybe Shug was just a little frustrated in the moment. And 15 minutes later, he probably would have said something completely different.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair. I was a little bit surprised to see Chad Brown dunk on him on Twitter. If you missed that, folks, you can go and read it for yourself. It didn't seem like he took too kindly to those remarks. Is there some bad blood there we don't know about? What do you think that was about?
Well, you got to imagine that there's some bad blood, in a lot of those situations. It's hard to win Grade 1 turf races in New York now with Chad there, so I'm sure that annoys a lot of people from time to time in a competitive way. I'm sure that Chad's kind of new school, Shug's kind of old school, so there's probably some clashes going on there. I'm sure they say hello to each other in the mornings and shake hands if they see each other at a restaurant. But the idea that there might be a little animosity there or something, and then Chad pointed out that Performer got that allowance race set up for him. So there might be something there. Maybe Chad, didn't want the race to go, wanted another race to go, and this one went. He knew it was for Shug. And there's a lot of things that could be going on behind the scenes, but I wouldn't think it's anything too serious.
Very surprise soap opera aftermath of this year's Cigar Mile, but I'm glad we covered the most important aspect first, and that was the impressive win by True Timber and the triumph at this whole meet, really, for Kendrick Carmouche. You mentioned the Remsen, so let's go there. Brooklyn Strong gets the win with a 93 by our speed figure. This one was touted heavily by our friend and colleague Matt Bernier. I wasn't smart enough to see it, JK. I thought that 10 for 10 looked an even money shot. Thought we were home and hosed down. In retrospect, when you look at this race, do you see the case for Brooklyn Strong? How good was this effort? Do you think he'll go forward off it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't one that I'm not flying out to Vegas to bet a future on Brooklyn Strong in the Derby or anything, but it's a good performance. The Remsen's interesting, right? The Remsen is to me, it's less about brilliance and it's more about who can stay a mile and an eighth at this point of their career. It doesn't feel like there's been any great horses as of late that have won the Remsen. And as I say that, I'm going to just double check.
There's some good horses who've run in it. When there was actually a great bit about this, it might have been a year ago when Andy Serling was on with Spencer for Redboard Rewind. He made a really eloquent defense of the Remsen, that it has this not, people in social media seem to think it's like this negative key race. And he went through, and it wasn't necessarily all the winners, though there were some winners. I'm doing that thing where I confuse Code of Honor and Honor Code for a second, but it was when Honor Code won. Obviously he went on to prove to himself of grade 1 medal, but it doesn't deserve the bad reputation that it has. It's not like the key prep race for the Kentucky Derby or anything, but it doesn't deserve the negative rep.
Well, Frosted ran second in a very, very impressive performance. He was completely against the track that day. I believe the rail was like as gold as it can get. He was wide on both turns.
Yeah, I remember that.
He actually came back to be a good horse. Some other horses, so you don't have to look it up. Bluegrass Cat, Court Vision, To Honor and Serve, Overanalyze, Honor Code, Mohaman, Motown, Catholic Boy. I mean, those are, it's not, like you said, it's not a terrible group, but it's
plenty of sires in that list.
Right. It's not you win that, you win the Derby type of deal.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I'm a little bit skeptical going forward of the this year's form. We'll see what happens. That's not a knock on the race, just my assessment of these individual runners. Brooklyn, let's play a little. We mentioned Redboard Rewind. Let's play a little Redboard Rewind. When you go back and look at Brooklyn Strong's PPs heading in, of course, we could just go and listen to Matt's analysis. Like I said, he had this one cold. But was there anything you felt like you missed after the race here?
Not necessarily. I mean, look, the horse just improved. He liked the racetrack. He got a nice trip. I think that the other three that took all the money, those horses still had faster speed figures. Their earlier races were more impressive. It just happens to be one of those things. These 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, they continue to progress, and some of the other ones stay the same. Brooklyn Strong is getting better. The rest of them kind of ran the same race, and that's that kind of leads to those types of performances.
That makes perfect sense to me. Let's talk Demoiselle. Buyer speed figure of 76 for Malathaat, a horse who to me looked beat at 3 separate points in the race. For me, this was not a race I would be too excited to bet too many coming out of. And I thought it was a testament to good riding by John Velasquez, essentially to never give up when the horse just continually seemed to be running in snatches, just stopping and starting. In the end, Malathaat had the quality to get the job done over Millefoy and all the rest. What did you think about the Demoiselle?
Yeah, I thought she ran really well, actually. I mean, she's the type of horse that I can get excited about moving forward. Obviously, the distance isn't going to be an issue for her when they get to the spring and they start running, looking at the Kentucky Oaks. She's obviously, I mean, I don't know if you can't be bred much better than she is. Being out of Dreaming of Julia, she was so remarkable. Her Gulfstream Park Oaks was one of the greatest races I've seen a 3-year-old filly run outside of Rachel Alexandra. So, and then being by Curlin, there's all kinds of reasons she's going to continue to get better. And I thought she had an excuse. I mean, she ran in one of those races where you could clearly tell she hated the kickback, she hated the racetrack, and she was completely in the entire time running with the parking brake on and pulling herself out of it. And once the real running started and she kind of got used to it and realized it was going to be all right, Johnny kept after her and she just kind of kept coming. And she actually ended up kind of winning going away towards the end there, it felt like. So I think she's going to, that sloppy race performance might not look that fast on paper. It might not have been that visually impressive, but I could get into her moving forward.
I mean, you make some good points about overcoming what she overcame and showing the class, which she clearly has. I just worry that for me, sometimes you have the visually, this will actually be a good segue to our next race. Sometimes you have the visually impressive performance that doesn't come out well on the clock. I felt like this was a not visually impressive performance that also didn't come out well on the clock. So I was inclined to be against.
But I think the visual portion of it is that I actually think that that the way that she ran the race to still run the way she did, still get the figure that she got, considering the fact that she was running with the parking brake on for 8 furlongs, I think it does make it a little bit better than what it appeared. And then you go back to her earlier numbers, which were faster than that. It kind of even reminds you that she won on class, and I think she'll continue to improve.
Could be an exception to the rule that we talk about often about not being any trips in slow races. We'll have to see. It'll be an interesting one. I was not too impressed with the 8 or 10 to 1, whatever it was, available from the bookmakers for the Kentucky Oaks immediately after. That felt super skinny to me. You're not usually one to jump at anti-post single digit prices. I can't imagine this one gets your motor running.
No, too many question marks still. I think I have a feeling what she is, but I don't know what she is. Let's
talk about the Grade 1 action we saw out on the West Coast at Los Al in the Grade 1 Starlet. Varda gets the win with a paltry 68 Beyer speed figure. I've been critical of this division, but let's start off with the good news. Princess Noir pulled up. It didn't look good, but sounds like soft tissue injury. She will be able to go on for her career as a broodmare. She's one that I was. You were actually the rare horse player who was on the fence. We had players on the network like Tyler Hoffman, who was saying, "I don't care what this is pre-Breeders' Cup. I don't care what the figures are. I know what I'm seeing. She looks special. She looks brilliant." And then you had the figure-oriented players, Randy Moss, pointing out a line that I've stolen on many occasions, that she wasn't fast enough to win a maiden at Saratoga. In the end, unfortunately, I don't know. The pro Princess Noir camp isn't going to have much to hang their hats on, but hey, doesn't matter in the breeding biz. She's got the Grade 1 and will clearly be an enticing broodmare prospect to some, huh?
I would think so. Like you said, she's not terribly fast, but obviously I think she was like $1 million. If I'm not mistaken.
1.9, I think. Yeah, she has pedigree.
Or maybe 3. I think it might have been 1.3. Okay. I think Gamine was 1.9, but who's
maybe I'm confusing. She was $1 million or close to it.
Exactly. And I think that the basic understanding is that if a horse goes for that much money, they look good and they've got pedigree. So when you can get them perform on the racetrack to win a Grade 1, that's good enough for breeders. Whether you want to breed to race or not might be a question, because she wasn't that fast. But for a commercial breeding, her page will look good. She'll look good. All that stuff kind of works out. So I would imagine that she'll bring some big money what they decide to do with her in her next career.
For me, the bigger disappointment of the race was Astute, who I loved coming in, found an associate in a faraway land to secure some 9-4 on Astute. And boy, I mean, I know it was a miserable trip all the way around, but this is one where I am concerned that I can't use that as an excuse, trying to point out a trip excuse in a race that went in a 68. I don't know. The hands she's in, Richard Mandela, maybe she can continue to improve. Maybe I'm not totally going to give up on her just yet, but I certainly have more questions than answers regarding Astute going forward. And I feel like Varda, the winner, was probably just in the right place at the right time. Any other thoughts from you on this year's Starlet?
I thought I had read somewhere that Joe Applebaum was involved in the breeding of Varda, but I'm having a hard time. Maybe it's just a New York bred thing is what I saw. Anyways, it's a New York bred nonetheless, and so that's always cool to see that. We spend so much time in New York and at Saratoga when these New York breds show up in other places and do well. I take a little bit of a sense of pride in that, even though I'm from Texas.
That's right. You're like an adopted. I can't believe what I'm hearing from you. You're like an adopted New Yorker now. And Brooklyn Strong, New York bred as well. It was a big weekend for the New York bred contingent, and Varda definitely added on to that. Hey, let's talk about the Gopher Juan for at least a minute, just to give a shout out to the huge run from a horse I didn't actually use. I feel bad admitting to all of our 10 Strike fans who are listening, but Portal Creek ran an amazing race. This was quite a throwdown in the stretch. Only just goes down to Sharp Star, the co-favorite in the closing stages, who wins that race with a 96 Beyer speed figure. You know that the 10 strike crew was all over this exacta, right? You have a Munnings in the slop against their own horse, but I thought the top two ran really well in here. I know it's the slop, but made me very curious to see what more each of them might have under the hood.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It feels like I hear this from owners that are also horse players. They have an idea of what their horses want to do, and they stick to the plan. And the plan with Portal Creek, talking to Marshall that morning, was she can't win if she's not on the lead. And that's where she ended up, on the lead, and she almost did win. So it's always encouraging to hear instructions like that from horse players. It seems to work out often.
Followed to a T in this case. Anything else from this weekend you want to talk about? Or I had a couple of things to quiz you about from the previous weekend of racing, but I was curious if there was another race or performance that you wanted to get something off your chest about.
No, just quickly before, when we were talking about those New York breds, it reminded me of another thing that tied into that is our friend Nosh Thompson, who's worked at Noir for a long time, got the executive director job for the New York Thoroughbred Breeders Association, and so that's pretty cool for him. So
that's awesome.
All good things going for the New York breds.
I love it. Congrats, Nosh. That's fantastic news and very, very good to see. Let's talk about some of the previous weekend of racing, and I wanted to get your take. This is so terrible. I'm having an absolute host fail here as I try to find the race. Here it is. There were better races in theory to talk about, but I wanted to get your take on the Jimmy Durante stakes from the previous weekend, with which I've gotten in several arguments with horse players about. This was the one, JK, that Fluffy Socks ended up winning with a 77 Beyer speed figure as part of the Chad Brown assault on the West Coast. I realize, as much as we talk about West Coast turf horses and the disadvantage they're at when the East Coast turf horses come and ship west, so much of this theory, not entirely, there's other races as well, but so much of this theory, I think, has specifically to do with the old Hollywood Turf Festival, now the Del Mar Turf Festival that we see Thanksgiving weekend. But the reason I wanted to talk to you about Fluffy Socks specifically was the inquiry that happened here, which I thought was just, for me, the perfect example of the kind of infraction that I wouldn't have a problem if, when looked at, stewards decided to give the rider days, but I felt like it would have been a real miscarriage of justice to take down this horse who was clearly the best horse because of, I guess, fair enough, he bowled his way out off the inside. I was just curious to hear your opinion. Did you think it was a foul? Did you think it should have been a DQ? I was very much on the side that it would have been a horrible DQ, but I know a lot of people disagree.
Yeah, the thing about this race, and I'm going to mess up, there was a race on Thursday, I think, in Del Mar in the first, where they took a horse down, very similar situation. And on Friday, Irad did the same thing on I'm almost there. It was not he did the same thing 2 days in a row. And I thought for sure he was going to come down on both of them, and he never did. I don't know. The Fluffy Socks thing, I wouldn't have argued if they would have taken him down. I didn't want him to come down. I don't think you did either in that situation.
I was very biased. I should point that out. And that's one of the reasons why I want other opinions, and why I don't trust myself as much when I have skin in the game, which I very much had with Fluffy Socks.
Yeah, I mean, look, but that's how he rides in New York too, though, and that's why he's so good. He's on good horses, and when he gets himself in bad positions, he pushes his way out of those bad positions. He pushes himself out of there. So, he on Orglandes in the I think I'm saying that right, in the red carpet on Thursday. The 4-horse, he did the same thing. He kind of got into a situation. He kind of pushed his way out with, and look, like I said, I wouldn't have been shocked if they would have taken it down, but I didn't think it needed to come down.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like you could make the definite case that it cost consternation a placing.
I also think it's one of those situations where, talking about a lot of the things that funny enough, Category 1 ran yesterday for 10 strike, but that Pat Cummings is always talking about is, Category 1 versus Category 2. In that situation, I think we'd be better off as a game as if Irad was fined for those infractions rather than being disqualified on the horse that was best.
Yeah,
if you don't feel like what he was doing was a good decision, or it wasn't safe, or it wasn't fair to the other riders, I think when you have a horse like that that's much the best, that didn't really that move did not necessarily change the outcome. Let's just leave it and hit him where it hurts in his pocket, and then next time maybe he'll make a better decision. Maybe he won't. Then find him more. But I think eventually it will happen. But don't punish the horse player who picked the best horse.
And don't make the stewards have to play God. I mean, that's such an awful decision to make. Did it cost Consternation a better placing? I mean,
yes.
Who knows? And it's like, and then what side do you err on being cautious, or do you err on that it did cause trouble? It just right. Anyway. To me, it is a better. The Category 1 is just a better system of doing things. While we're looking back at the Turf Festival, let's talk about the Grade 1 first and foremost. Domestic Spending, winning the Hollywood Derby, Son of Kingman, another one to have big success out of that sale, the Tattersall sale. And I mean, this horse ran, I thought, a very big race, good stuff from Irad Ortiz here, and paid fairly. I mean, I understand why there was a lot of ways you could go in this race, but after the race, the 4-1 looked okay on this one, I thought. What did you think of the Hollywood Derby?
Looked like free money, the 4-1. I mean, I'm a strong believer that I'm going blank on the name, but I'm going to do that thing where I stall for a second.
Stallifying. We've decided to call
there it is. I'm a big believer that the race that was run at Saratoga this summer, the National Museum, the Hall of Fame, where Decorated Invader was in there, that Colonel Liam was in there, I believe Buffo and Decorated Invader, just a good race, right? And I think that those 3-year-old turf horses that were banging heads on the East Coast, one of them was going to win this race. It just happened to be Domestic Spending in this spot. Buffo
I think
ran well.
Mike McCarthy, if he's listening at this point, is shaking his fist at the screen and saying, "What does my horse have to do to gain your respect, JK? We only lost the head."
No, and I texted him after the race, tough beat, and he said, "This one stings." Yeah. Smooth like. But here's the thing, though, about Smooth Like Straight, is that McCarthy's an East Coast guy. He's got that East Coast been at Keeneland, been at Saratoga, been at Belmont, been at Churchill. So
you're considering him an honorary East Coaster when it comes to
absolutely with that, okay. Especially with that. Yeah. So, I think that this is another good callback to that show you did with Nick Luck. I actually listened to it when I was driving back from Saratoga. It was really fun to listen to the Tattersales show that you did with Nick. I think people that hadn't heard that, these horses, Domestic Spending, Newspaper of Record, there's a handful of other ones. Public Sector, I believe, was one that they got over there, and then the filly, Aunt Pearl. I think she was from over there as well, right? So
indeed.
There's an interesting story to be told there, and Pete, dug deep with those people in that sale and with Nick Luck, so you should listen to that as well.
Yeah, for that one you could find in the archives. I think it's actually, we busted out the old In the Ring Pedigree podcast banner for that one. But one great note you had, and you said this before the race to me when I was talking about how I thought Decorated Invader had a good chance. And you were like, I'm not using him today. I don't think he wants a step over a mile. I think that's starting to look very right, the way that this horse sort of cruised into things and just came up empty late. Is Decorated Invader one you'd be interested in on the cutback?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And look, that's not my own opinion. That's an opinion. I always tell people when it comes to being a good horse player or trying to be a good horse player, you surround yourself with people that have good opinions, and then you stand back and listen. That was Richie Mcgliorey, whose son, Joe Mcgliorey, was involved in the picking of Decorated Invader. So that horse is very important to Joe and to the family, obviously, because it's a big deal for Joe. And so when Richie told me that he felt like the horse was best at a mile. When you're not making excuses for your son, and I don't mean Joe, I mean the horse. Like that's probably feels like Richie's son. When you're not making excuses, oh well, he got a bad trip this day. When you're saying, no, this is what he is. This is what he needs to do. I just kind of filed that away and have used it. So Joe Mcgliorey with another huge win this weekend. He bought that horse privately, Faya, that won down at
Claiming Crown.
Park. Yep, yeah, he won extremely impressively. So that horse feels like he's got a grade 1 with his name on it at some point.
Let's hit a couple of grade 2s. We can sort of rapid fire these, but we do have to give some count to the West Coast, JK. The Seabiscuit went their way in agonizing fashion. If, like us, you were on Flavius, Count again gets the job done with the 100 buyer speed figure. I don't think it's incorrect to say that Flavius was probably best in here, but Count again was the one who got the victory. What did you think of this race?
I don't know if you saw that, but I just got the chills because it reminded me of like that was the one horse that snapped me.
It was bad.
I've seen that story before. Agave racing, getting a horse privately, changing the situation, and the horse runs. I mean, that horse won so impressively, and I didn't have him anywhere. And I was spread in that race too, and not having him was very frustrating. So good for the West Coast for pulling that one off. Bad for JK's bankroll.
Mine as well. Objectively, do you think am I overrating Flavius? I felt like, wide throughout, moved into the faster part of the race. I thought it was fair to say he was best. Am I being too apologetic about our own betting opinion?
No, I don't think he was. I never thought he was a world beater anyways, Flavius, but I just felt like he was going to win that race.
I was only too deep in there, so maybe I'm more invested in making excuses.
Yeah, but I thought Flavius could win. I thought Spirit Animal, had a chance in there, and there was one more that I thought Bowie's Hero. Bowie's Hero just kind of runs well in those spots. Oh, and then another Twist of Fate. That horse it was really strong on the workout report.
Yes, ended up going that's the other one I used.
Yeah, blasted off. They went pretty quick, so I think he just kind of got in the mix there. So, it was a fun weekend. That turf event is always fun out there in the fall.
We talked about one potential Kentucky Oaks prep earlier. Let's talk about the Goldenrod from Churchill, a race where Simply Ravishing went to post a 3-5 favorite, but in the end, it was Travel Column who got the job done, coming from far off the pace in a race that was falling apart late. Travel Column by Frosted gets an 85 buyer speed figure. Did you think we saw any serious Kentucky Oaks players in this one, whether it be from Travel Column or any of the others?
Not necessarily. If I'm not mistaken, I think Andy Sterling made the point that she was one of those situations where she didn't break that great, but it kind of worked in her favor.
I would agree with that,
because they kind of ran, and then she kind of got to stay out of trouble and kind of stay in the clear. So, I thought she was okay. I think the one that I think is interesting moving out of here is that horse Clairiere, the horse that is you talk about breeding, cavorting, curling out of cavorting. That's pretty spectacular.
Pretty purple.
Yeah, it's trained by Steve Asmus, and you think she'll continue to progress. She was 3-1, 7-2 on her debut, and she won, and she did it pretty impressively. And then she was 5-1 in this race, and she still almost won. I think as the distances get longer for her, as she continues to kind of grow up and talk to mom and dad about what it's like being a real racehorse, I think she could be dangerous.
You could make the point that she was the one who made the move that broke the race apart, that type of Andy Beyer move into a hot pace angle that I'm always looking to bet back. So I'm with you there, JK, on Clairiere. One more topic of discussion. I'm shocked that this, I almost don't believe it's real because I've heard so little buzz about this Lasix announcement about the Triple Crown Trail and the Kentucky Derby. Was this an early April Fool's joke, or is this real and happening?
I didn't even see it. Really?
We may have to cut this part out. Let's look and confirm quickly. I was pretty sure I saw, and I think the Blood Horse or somewhere reputable over the weekend about there being no Lasix, which, I know was something they were talking about in this bill, and I figured was going to be happening in 2022 or whatever. But
I'm looking at a thing on September 2nd that says the 146th Kentucky Derby will be the last for horses on the drug Lasix.
the 20, yeah. So I guess it is real. I bring it up just because it seems so newsworthy. There was an article over the weekend about it saying that I guess in the various prep races and the Derby itself, no Lasix. I'll say this: if you're not going to have it in the Derby, I'm very happy to not have it in the preps, because it just does feel like see in the no Lasix races the occasional just like head scratcher of the horse who actually needs it. I feel like from a horse player point of view, as long as it's consistent throughout the run, it doesn't really make much of a difference to us. What do you think?
It sounds like they're not giving points for races that don't. Yeah.
If you're a points race, there will not be Lasix, which means the entirety of the prep.
Horses will only gain points towards the 2021 Derby or Oaks if they run without Lasix in those Derby Oaks trail races.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't this feel like it should be something people are talking a little bit more about? I don't know. Maybe.
I think that the world is focused on other more important.
You think? No way. There's nothing more important than the 2021 Kentucky Derby, and I'm not just saying that because I get a check from Twin Spires every month, JK.
That's not the syringe that I think the world is focused on at the moment.
Other thoughts on it? I mean, I think from a horse playing point of view, like I said, as long as it's consistent throughout the thing, doesn't bother me. And I'll say this, in a weird way, I'm somebody who I hear the Lasix debate and I roll my eyes and I get frustrated because there's 14 other things as a horse player, maybe 41 other things as a horse player I'd rather talk about and see improved than Lasix. That said, it does seem to me that if you did want to make an anti-Lasix initiative, to leave alone most racing and focus on 2-year-olds and stakes races that are of the most relevance to the breeding industry, that actually seems like, and I can't believe I'm saying this about horse racing, but a sensible compromise. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those deals where if you want to talk about, pace, even trips, things like that, I feel like I can have a conversation about it. But it's one of those deals. I kind of get both sides. I know how the horsemen feel about it. I understand the perception, obstacles. I get it all, right? So whatever they do, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I'll support it. I do think that in the long term, it's probably a better thing, but I do also respect the impact that it will have on horsemen in the now. So I'll stay there.
Seems like you're getting ready for your political run, JK 2024. Is that what we're talking about here? All right.
No.
Not a job. You have about 6 jobs. That's not going to be the 7th.
I'm out on that one.
All right. Other things to talk about. We've got our other guest waiting in the green room, ready to come in here and talk about the DG gift-giving guide for the year 2020. JK's got a JK+1 this week. We're going to have a special show about the Hong Kong international races, brought to you in partnership with our friends at theraces.com. I'm super psyched about that. Take a look. There's some great opportunities in Hong Kong. I've been talking to Sean Borman a lot about this and a lot about how USA horse players may want to get involved. These big international races with the 4 big stakes might be a good way for folks to dip their toe in the water. Check that out. We'll be back later in the week as well with our pick show. Plenty of content coming up. JK, have a great week. We will see you maybe on this. We didn't crow about hitting the Stronach 5 this week. Maybe maybe we decided there was too much bragging on the show already. Maybe I'll have to come back for Stronach this week so we could brag then. What do you say?
Well, yeah. The listeners and you hit it. I didn't hit it because I didn't use that silly horse that you liked that won it 1-0. I lost while the world.
I threw in at the last minute, but the key to it was great teamwork though, because I think the key to it was starting off runner AA, which I might have messed up. So anyway, it was something. But who knows? We'll talk later. We'll actually do a production meeting outside the show to figure out who the co-host is going to be on this week's Stronach 5 show. But that'll be up later in the week as well. We'll be talking soon, my friend.
I got a gift idea. Don't let me out. Where's it at? Salevo.
You got something?
Get you a gift card from Salevo.
Oh, that's a very good one. Very good one.
You just got to call up and ask for G. She'll get you sorted out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, everybody likes Saratoga, so whether you're there off season or during the meet, Salevo does a great job. And I definitely I'll wholeheartedly endorse that. Yeah, I mean, this is a good segue. Other gift ideas? Anything else on your list this year that's horse racing related, or things you might be giving? I'm sure we're going to talk about the In the Money whiskey later, but anything else
I mean,
DG gift wise?
I think anything from Old Smoke is always good. I think they got a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of stuff. They got hoodies now. They got all the T-shirts. That's always good. I think, obviously the handicapping books I know you'll cover, I think are kind of fun. And then one thing that I always thought would be kind of cool is like a subscription to something. I've always thought those are fun. So whether if your significant other is looking for a new platform, maybe try Timeform US or Stats Raceland subscription, or maybe a formulator thing for a couple months, or workout reports, whatever you want to do. Maybe grab one of those types of things
Data.
too. I think it's always fun.
Yeah, horse players need data, and we know we have to pay for it. So it's a good thing to put on that holiday gift list. Good stuff from you, my friend. We will be talking soon. Coming up for the second half of our show, we have the other JK with us. This is, I think it's going to become an annual thing. It was a big hit last year when we did our Degenerate Gift-Giving guide. So very happy to have back with me the author of Sir Barton and the Making of the Triple Crown, Jennifer Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Pete. How is everybody today? So excited to be back for another edition.
And you're dressed in such a festive manner. I feel about it. I have a Christmas sweater around here somewhere. This Nordic thing I have on almost qualifies, but not quite. But I kind of, is that a poinsettia fascinator you have rocking there?
I found it at a craft store last year and couldn't help myself. And normally I'm not this hokey. Unless it's something like Derby or Valentine's Day, but just for the holidays, I'm like, since we're staying at home and being, COVID cautious, I was like, let me get all my holiday gear out and just really have fun with it. So
if you can't get hokey at the holidays, when can you get hokey? That's my question.
Well, like I said, I'm a frustrated elementary school teacher. I just really miss being able to go to the kids' parties and just embarrass them mightily with all my stuff. So
we had some fun the other day. We did, I say an event, but it wasn't really an event because it was absolutely very carefully constructed. So there were very few people there at the same time. But the racetrack chaplaincy up at Saratoga did a little bit of a holiday giveaway thing, and we were there to help distribute. We played Little Secret Santa and got to distribute some gifts. And I did bust out. I found a series of Star Wars themed Christmas sweaters, which we all donned. Perrin had the Baby Yoda, aka Grogu shirt. Susan had one with a stormtrooper, and I had the big Darth Vader head with the Santa hat on, saying, "I find your lack of cheer disturbing." Yeah. And in fact, some of the kids really dug it. So I'm all for the frustrated elementary school teacher vibes around here. Let's talk about gifts. Actually, no. We'll put a pin. We're going to come back to the gifts. Let's talk about what you are up to. Last year, we talked all about your Sir Barton book, which is fantastic. And I know a lot of listeners have already purchased, but I'm sure that's a perfectly appropriate gift for folks to get who haven't already had a chance to check it out. But I'm also curious to hear what's going on with that book, but also what you've been working on lately.
Well, of course, I'm still promoting and shamelessly
there it is.
Throwing it off whenever I get a chance. But also, this past year, I've been lucky that I've been picking up more and more opportunities to write. So I'm working on my second book, of course, which is about Gallant Fox in Omaha. And that's called Foxes of Bel Air. And I'm really looking forward to being done with that, because that means other people can read it. Because right now, I'm like, okay, everybody's like, when is it coming out? Like, that's a really good question. I'll let you know.
What's your hope as far as that goes? I mean, are we looking at 2021?
No, 2023, hopefully.
Okay.
That's because I'm still writing.
You're in the researching and writing stage still. We know how that goes.
So, and the pandemic kind of puts a little bit of a challenge to that because I can't do all the research I would do normally because I can't travel.
Right.
So
I'm
there's
envisioning in normal times you'd be spending a wide swath of time at the Keeneland Library. They have
yes,
so many wonderful resources there.
yes, and I spent a week there back in February, and I need more, like 2 more weeks
Gotcha.
there,
Gotcha.
really. And then there's some other places I need to travel to. I'm also writing for the Racing Biz, which is a Mid-Atlantic racing website run by Frank Vespi, and I get to do history stuff for them, and I love that, of course. And I've been writing for Past the Wire. And I'm picking up some other stuff in the new year. So I'm really excited because not only do I get to work on the book, but I get to work on other topics that, I love. Anytime I get to learn about horses I don't know a lot about, I will grab the opportunity. So anytime I can.
I'm a research geek myself. I don't really do any of that anymore. And I never really, I worked on one horse racing research project that's what led me to one of the more pleasing afternoons of my career, going through ancient racing forms at the Keeneland Library. But I've done just in other parts of my life that type of research for baseball and things, and it's amazing how you can get immersed reading the coverage from the time, especially like looking at old newspapers and the ads and this whole world opens up to you. So I envy getting to be steeped in that as you do the work, but I also know how tricky it can be with these books, and I can only imagine in a time like now how tricky it is. And that puts me in mind of the famous Dorothy Parker quote about writing, something to the effect of, to paraphrase, I loathe writing, I love having written. And I think when you're in the midst of a big project like the one you're working on now, which I imagine kind of picks up where the Sir Barton book left off in terms of the creation of the Triple Crown.
That's the goal was, okay, since I've done the first, and when I was writing the first one, part of publishing it was having to research other books in that genre so that I could say to my publisher, this is what else is out there. And so as I did that, I discovered that there were Triple Crown winners that had books, and then there were some that didn't. And it surprised me immensely that no one had written about Gallant Fox and Omaha, like as a whole book, because William Woodward was so integral to horse racing in the 30s and into the 40s. Like, he was the chairman of the Jockey Club, and he's the one that got the Jersey Act kind of like off the book so that American horses could breed in England. And he did a lot of stuff, and there really wasn't a ton of like information where you could just go and find about how Gallant Fox and Omaha, won the Triple Crowns and what the impact was later. Because it's like, it's only a couple of years after Omaha before War Admiral wins, and it's just like it kind of grew and grew and grew, and then you get to the 40s and you have all the winners in the 40s, but it was Omaha and Gallant Fox that really made it a thing. And so it's been a lot of fun. Let's put it that way.
Let me ask you this, just a tangent question I can't resist. What's one thing, with as well-versed in the history of racing you are, and looking at this time, really you're looking at a time where racing was big, but in like a pre-boom way. Mm-hmm. What's something that you've learned in your research that informs the way you look at horse racing and where we are in the sporting landscape in the year 2020?
Well, I've learned that the way that people consume media and the way that people regarded how they used their time was a lot different. And obviously now we think we have so much more to do than we did back in that era. But really it's about the same. It's just what people's habits were in terms of what they did with their time. But, if you, like, there was radio and there was, newsreels and whatnot, you could consume this stuff. But I think because the Great Depression kind of forced states to find other revenue streams, that's when horse racing really grew. And so it became more and more accessible to people because they were running in their state, because, it's like, we need the revenue. So you created fans that way. And now, we're running into the same thing. How do we create fans? It is hard because you have to figure out ways to bring the sport to people, and that requires a lot of planning and things, and when you can turn on your TV and here's NFL, it's like, well, all right. Even I live in Alabama. We don't have an NFL team, but we have, Alabama football. So football is like always ever present. And it's like, if we can find a way to make horse racing ever present for people, then we can add more fans. So that was the thing about the 30s, was like, the more sports were in your space, the more you were, likely you were to become a fan of it.
Let's talk about this year's holiday season. Folks, a lot of the stuff we talked about on last year's DG gift-giving guide, I think, is still relevant, but maybe we'll start in the book space, because I know obviously there's always new developments as far as that goes. What have you been reading? What have you been seeing out there in the world? Obviously we've mentioned your own Sir Barton book, which we want to make sure people have at the top of their list, but knowing you, I bet you there's some other books to talk about as well.
There are. I tried to collect as many as I could, and I put them in a blog post because I wanted to remember them, because I wanted to read them myself. It's like, I don't get to read nearly as much as I used to because I'm always doing research. But this year, there's a book on Diane Crump by Mark Strager, which is supposed to be really good. So if anyone's interested in the careers of these, female jockeys, especially Diane Crump, who kind of pioneered female jockeys in the United States, definitely look that one up. Mark Paul did a book called The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told, which I think would be very much up yours and JK's alley, because it's about like how they put a 7-figure bet down on the 1988 Kentucky Derby and then collected their winnings.
Amazing.
Apparently there's some Mexican connection to this that made it all very kind of questionable, or
I gotta check this out. This book has somehow escaped my notice. I thought you were going to be talking about there was that amazing book about the Barney Curley betting coup that came out in the last couple of years. But this sounds like a USA version of it, which sounds, Lost Gambling Stories. That's very much my thing, and I think will be up the alley of a lot of the listeners. Mark Paul, you said, is the author of that one?
And he's very active on social media, so you can find him on there. But it's called The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told, or something like that. I don't have the book personally. I have an e-copy of it, and I haven't been able to read it yet, but I've heard a lot of really good things about it.
Well, you're helping me by pointing it out. That's for sure.
Winning colors on the cover, so you can see, you'll know it's the right book when you see winning colors on the cover. Also, Dave Hill published The Vapors, which was about Hot Springs, Arkansas in the 60s, which was apparently like Vegas before there was Vegas. And I love the tagline was like gamines, gamblers, and I forgot the other G. And it was just really neat because it's
a great book. We had Dave on, and he's great. And that book really paints a picture. And for those who really like historical nonfiction, being a racing fan is going to help. Having an interest in the history of Hot Springs is going to help. But it's really just a recreation of an era that reads like a novel and has this personal connection too, to Dave's life, which helps bring it flying off the page. So I heartily second that recommendation right there for The Vapors.
I haven't read it yet, but I've heard a lot about it, and so I've got it on my list, and I'm really hoping it lands under my tree so that I get to read it next year. I'm
great.
I need to read this book. I'm trying to think of the other one. This one actually I have, because it has Omaha and Gallant Fox in it. This is called I Got the Horse Right Here. And it's a collection of columns by Damon Runyon on horse racing.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't know about this one either. You got to love the title right there from Feud for Tin Horns from Guys and Dolls, the musical, of course, based on so much of Runyon's work. And I've read plenty of Runyon, but not necessarily, more the short stories, as opposed to, this sounds like journalism about horse racing. Does that sound right?
Yes, because it's got newspaper columns that I was looking for in Omaha actually were in here. So I was able to just, look here and find, because in 1934, when Omaha was 2, Runyon actually selected him as his favorite for the Derby in
great.
September, long before the Derby Winter Book had even opened. He's like, I think Omaha's going to win.
That's awesome.
And then that one, this is actually edited by Jim Reisler, who works for Naira. So if you get a chance, you should totally pick this book up. It's so good. I'm like,
Yeah.
I like, because if you've read Out of the Clouds by Linda Carroll, and they actually talk about Damon Runyon as being part of the story with Isidore Beaver and people like that. And so this definitely, if you want to learn more about Runyon and Runyon's take on horse racing, because it collects columns from like 1922 to 1936, and so it's like 14 years of his content on horse racing. It's a good book.
I've already ordered it. As you were talking there, I was clicking around. If you heard the clicking on the podcast version of the show, that was me ordering. I got the horse right here. That sounds like a must-have. Yeah, the only Runyon I own is the book. They did a Guys and Dolls book that was basically the stories that all those characters come from. But I mean, I love that old school stuff. You know, Joe Palmer is a favorite of mine. And I would imagine this would fit right in that vein. So if you've got if you or somebody in your horse racing circle are suckers for this kind of material, those are some great ideas. You know, I think narrative nonfiction wise feels like The Vapors is the way to go. If you're interested in the old school journalism, that I got the horse right here. And I do realize, you know, I have a copy of this greatest gambling story ever told. I was talking to somebody, not at the publisher, but on the distribution side, a long, complicated story involving my machinations on the new Chris Jericho book, which wrestling fans and music fans can order pre-Christmas, but those won't be shipping until early next year. You'll be hearing a lot more about that book on these airwaves at some point. One of my latest literary projects. But I did speak to somebody on the distribution side who was explaining how well the greatest gambling story ever told has been doing. And I'm embarrassed to say I haven't gotten to it yet, but that'll be on my pile for Christmas reading. Anything else on the book front, Jennifer, before we pivot and talk about some other gift ideas?
I had to do one more because it's a kid's book. And I know that
we love that.
Aaron, so this is the true story of Zippy Chippy.
Oh, yes, I did see that. That's awesome. Oh, I got to get that.
Written by Artie Bennett, and it's illustrated by Dave Sosley. I'm going to murder that last name. I'm very sorry, Dave. But I met Artie at a book fair last year when I was promoting Sir Barton, and he said, I'm writing this book about Zippy Chippy. And I went, oh, very nice, very cool. And then suddenly I I got to do a jacket quote for it, and it like 5 copies of it landed in my mailbox, and I'm like, yes, thank you very much. That's great. So, this is awesome. It's adorable. It's very beautifully illustrated, but it's just a great like horse racing story for anyone with kids. And you know, everybody knows Zippy Chippy.
It's not all about winning. I try to impart that lesson whenever possible to Perrin. You know, it's not all about winning. You can get famous never winning, as Zippy Chippy shows. I just love the story of the perseverance and the appreciation for just getting out there and trying. If you enjoy your job, you know, which a lot of horses do that, which is another great message that I wouldn't mind her hearing. So I love it. I have a feeling Santa may be getting a last minute request from Perrin for the Zippy Chippy book. That's a great array. It feels like a particularly good year for books related to horse racing, I would say, based on that array. And even if we're going to have to wait another year or two to get your next one. Yeah, I do my best to keep an eye out for what's new and what's cool. And, you know, I'm sure if you look at the Tony Ryan Book Awards, a lot of those books came out last year, but if you haven't had a chance to catch up, the 3 finalists were Justify, Better Lucky Than Good, and a biography of Henry Cecil, the trainer. And all 3 of those are great reads. And I haven't read the Henry Cecil book yet, but I really want to. But I've read Better Lucky Than Good and Justify. And, you know, if you want award-winning, you know, horse racing books, those are definitely recommended too. Great stuff. I love it. All right, let's move aside from the book realm now. I know last year you had a bunch of other fun ideas for the horse racing lover in your life, or for you to ask other people for, if you're a regular listener to these shows. What comes to mind in terms of non-book horse racing gifts this year? All right, so I'm forever a frustrated Christmas gift receiver trying to get my family to give me horse racing things. Like, please. So I always make a list, and then I'm not always successful.
But I always start with Amy, and I had to pull this off my Christmas tree.
The ornaments.
The ornaments. Now, Amy does more than that. So I have to, Amy's Horse Racing Gifts, you can find her on Facebook, and she doesn't have a website. She's only on Facebook. But she also did the Sir Barton colors right there for me.
Nice.
And she's done a number of things. She's done decals on my car. So if you've seen like social media, you see me on there. You're like, I got a new car. I had to get more decals for my car. And then she did all 13 Triple Crown winners for me. So I have all 13 on my tree. And then she's done, there's a couple of signs I have around the house. She's done coffee mugs and just any number of things. And she can make it for any horse. So not necessarily a Triple Crown winner. Like if you have a share of authentic, she can do authentic stuff.
That's great. And she spells her name a little differently, right? For people who are looking, it's AMIE, if I'm remembering that right.
AMIE, Amy's Horse Racing Gifts. And if you are watching the show and you're like, I totally forgot, can you tell me again? Just find me on like Twitter or Facebook and I'll remind you and send you the link to it. And I'm sure she's going to be like super excited to hear from everybody because she loves horse racing. Like she was at the Breeders' Cup and
that's great.
She's at the Derby. She loves horse racing and she'll be happy to do any horse she can think of, no matter how old it is.
We missed a trick here, I realized, Jennifer, for the viewers. Yes. We didn't put your Twitter handle up on screen there, but it's good to have it for the audio, for the listeners, too. So tell folks where they can find you on Twitter if they have questions about any of this stuff, your books, Amy's Horse Racing Gifts, etc.
I'm at the Sir Barton, so at the THE Sir Barton, because someone already had Sir Barton when I signed up to Twitter. Like, whoever you are, I want your handle.
The Sir Barton works though. That feels organic. Sir
Barton, and it's same on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find my author page on Facebook by searching at the Sir Barton. I think that's on there too. So
excellent.
You can find me. I'm all over the place.
Moving on from the Amy's and the tchotchkes, what are some other things on your list this year?
I this year was introduced to Bob Clark, Robert Clark, who's done a number of paintings of horses. And I actually have Bob's calendar. I'm trying to think where it is. It's right there, but I don't know if you can see it very well.
I think we got it in the corner of the screen there. Yeah,
that one. Bob does a horse racing artwork. He's got a book that he's got a collection of his paintings, and then he does prints. So he's got American Pharoah and Curlin and all these horses, and the prints are reasonably priced, for people who might not, who want to know, like, I want something really pretty in my house, but I may be on a budget. He's got some really nice prints up there. And his is Robert Clark Artist. I'm trying to remember the website. I know I've got it somewhere. But I love Bob. He's got such pretty stuff, and his calendar is amazing. They're working on the calendar for next year already. And then my friend Raquel Nelson does Deck the Stalls.
Deck the Stalls. I love it. What is that?
She's on Facebook, but Raquel is you might have seen Raquel on the news if you live in the Louisville area, because she owned a share of Authentic. And so they interviewed her for that. But she's a beautiful artist. And so I just love her stuff. And then I always have to give a shout out to Old Smoke.
Oh, yeah. I had them on my list to plug. If you didn't, we even have a little pretty link where you can find the In the Money shirts that Old Smoke does on the website, including our new hoodie that has the I won and so did they, which has a baked in $75 donation to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Easiest way to find our stuff is inthemoneypodcast.com/Old Smoke. But of course, you can also just go to the Old Smoke clothing website. They've got a ton of good stuff. And I should mention before I forget, if you use our promo code MONEY, you get free shipping from them as well. What in particular in the Old Smoke catalog do you have your eye on as a potential gift for you this holiday season?
I think that the better question would be, what do I not? There's a Sir Barton shirt on the Old Smoke website, which of course I already have the Sir Barton shirt. There's a Graveyard of Champions shirt that I really, really want because it has Gallant Fox on it.
Right.
Like, I need the shirt.
Logically, yeah.
There's so many shirts. Every time I go in Old Smoke, I have to leave because I'm like, if I stay, I will buy more things. and I don't need more. I think I have a dozen of their shirts already.
That's great. I think we're going to be launching another one soon. There's ideas that have been bandied about with a designer, another in the money themed one for horse players. I love our Degenerate horse player shirt. I know we're running out of sizes on that one, but I'm hoping you've got that one. Nice, repping us. I love it.
I couldn't help myself. I was like, I need this shirt.
What about other clothing and or accessories? Anything come to mind? I definitely want to give a shout out to our friends at Christine A. Moore Millinery. Wonderful stuff there for women and men in the Blake collection. Not this one, but a lot of my hats. This is one I think I picked up at a gift stall at Cheltenham, some English brand with the sort of Western hunting kind of vibes. But I love the Blake collection and the Christine Moore stuff. Susan's got some stuff from them as well. But who else comes to your mind in terms of clothing and accessories?
That's a tough one because I'm like forever wearing old smoke stuff, and I'm like, I appreciate it. I know there's Key to Quarter Pole, I think, or something like that. There's a line of clothing that has quarter pole in it. I had it, and now I didn't write it down. I probably should have. I'm always a big fan of going to the websites of the different races that you enjoy. So I just bought a Derby shirt because I can't help myself. I wanted a long sleeve Kentucky Derby shirt. So I went through the Derby Museum, and you can buy, Kentucky Derby shirts and stuff like that there. I also bought Breeders' Cup shirts. We were supposed to go to Breeders' Cup this year. We weren't able to, obviously. So I had to have my prerequisite, like, long sleeve and short sleeve Breeders' Cup shirt. I just can't help myself.
There might still be some deals, by the way, from this year's Breeders' Cup. When last I checked, there were some amazing discounts over at the Breeders' Cup store. There is and I'm assuming this is the one you were looking for. There is a Quarter Pole Apparel, which is just quarterpoleapparel.com. I'm not familiar with that site, so that's one that I'll put for myself to check out as well.
I saw that when I was searching for things for the gift guide, and then last year you guys had a company that makes purses and other accessories.
Purses for ponies. Now, I haven't been in touch with Trevor Shoemaker from there in a while, but I assume they're still active. I'll find out and maybe send out a tweet or a link promoting that, because that was some cool stuff. Bags for men and women. That and which is reminding me, I never got around to getting mine, which I need to do. It's always good to have an extra. I guess 2020 wasn't a year where you didn't really need the track bag the way that you do in so many years, but hopefully 2021 we'll get back. So that's a good excuse to reach out to Trevor over at Purses for Ponies. What else did you have on your list in this realm?
Are you talking about clothing?
Yeah, clothing, accessories, anything.
That's pretty much it for me. I'm sure that other people may know things that I don't. So if other people that are listening have links they want to share, please do.
Yeah.
I'm forever asking for links to retailers that sell items, especially small businesses that sell items. Because I know there was one on Etsy, and it just flew out of my brain because I'm on camera, of course. Odds and Hind Ends. They do pins and stuff and stickers, and they have Tis the Law.
That's cool.
Tis the Law gear, and I love it. So Odds and Hind Ends on Etsy, and they're awesome because they have a curling pin and some frosted stuff and Tis the Law, and I know there are a lot of Tis the Law people out in your listening audience. So, and then of course, Tis the Law has their own website. So if you want to go to Saratoga, they have their face masks and shirts and stuff like that.
Old Smoke has at least one Tis the Law design as well. We are a little short on time, Jennifer, but I love the idea of keeping this conversation going on Twitter, going back and forth. A couple of things I did want to mention that I had on my list. Was it you last year, or was it one of our other guests? I thought it was you who mentioned the Derby Glass Warehouse site.
No, that wasn't me, but now I need this place.
Yeah, it's cool.
It used to be my life.
So I think it's just derbyglasswarehouse.com, which is a great way to fill in your missing collection of Derby glasses from over the years. I have quite a collection myself. And then when one inevitably breaks, it's a good way to replace them. And one of these years, I'll pay up and get some of the famous ones too. But yeah, that's a good one for racing fans to know about. I know there's a lot of whiskey drinkers listening. We still have, and you got to act fast, because I'm telling you, when these are gone, they're going to be gone until we do the 2021 edition. But our In the Money single barrel malt whiskey available by donation to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, trfinc.org/players. On that one, you can go there and read more about that. And then the retailer I often mention, they've got places in Lexington and Louisville. Not a sponsor yet, but I will give a nice shout out to Justin's House of Bourbon, also Astor Wines in New York. They're going to have access to things. Justin's House of Bourbon does a lot of cool single barrel projects. One other whiskey I'll just shout out, because Sean Josephs used to be a restaurateur here in Brooklyn. He's now working on this whiskey project, and it's all racing themed. Pinhook whiskeys are worth checking out. I've had several that are good. In the early days, they were sourced. I now think he's got some of stuff that he's distilled himself, and I'll give Pinhook a shout out as one to check out. Before we let you go, though, anything else on your list, Jennifer, in any regard in terms of degenerate gift giving?
I have two. Okay, one is called the Gray Horse Candle Company, and she actually makes candles, soy wax candles that smell like horse things.
What? This sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit.
It's like hay and the smell of a barn and freshly mown grass and things like that. So if you are a horse person, you have horses, you'll be familiar with these smells.
I think I know what I'm getting Kim Weir for Christmas now. I think
not
she'll
dirty,
appreciate that.
I got to go muck out a stall smell, but the whole I freshly mown grass, and here's the smell of like a freshly groomed horse. Just
the warm and fuzzy aromas associated with the equines, like more so than the straight up barnyard stuff.
And then the other one is, I have to put a plug in really quick. I'm part of the bookstore for horse lovers, so you can find us online. But I'm historical, like nonfiction, but we have a lot of fiction on there. And so if you're like, I need something happy in fiction to read that's horsey, the bookstore for horse lovers.
That's awesome. What's the URL? You give us the URL on that.
I think it's honestly, I had to look it up again, because it's like the URL doesn't necessarily match the thing. But if you Google bookstore for horse lovers, I'm pretty sure Heather's going to kill me because I don't have the URL right off the bat.
I'll tell you what, we'll make up for it. If you send it, you have your whole written gift guide. I assume it's in there.
Yes, it is. It's the Sir Barton Project, and then you can find. I've got two gift guides, one for books and one for non-books.
I'm going to put them both in the show notes for this. And then when we send it around on social media, folks can go to the show notes. They can double check all of our faulty memory URL recollections, whether it's my Derby Glass Warehouse or yours on the bookstore for horse lovers.
It's booksforhorselovers.com.
There you go. Booksforhorselovers.com.
I had to make sure I was like, and then of course, if you want the Travers book, Ryan Bouillet is putting part of the price of the book toward Old Friends. That's
awesome. And that's a wonderful book that, we had Brian on last year. We talked about the book and the gift giving guide, but definitely more, it's a big illustrated gifty kind of book as well,
and it's well worth it. And until December 15th, $10 goes toward Old Friends.
That's terrific. Great note on there. All right, Jennifer, we are gonna wrap things up here, but I really appreciate you coming on again. Always a pleasure to visit with you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Definitely. Thank you, Pete. Happy holidays, everybody.
And that is going to do it for this edition of the show. We'll thank Jennifer one more time. We're going to make JK, Jonathan Kinchin, the other JK in this closing here. We'll thank the other JK, Jonathan Kinchin, as well, for his contributions. Our partners and sponsors, we talked about TRF plenty during the show, but Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, 10 Strike Racing, so good to be in business with them. But most of all, want to thank all of you, the listeners, for making the show so much fun to do, especially those of you who voted for us for those ABR Podcast Awards. What a great thrill that was. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. We've been produced today by DJ Unstable himself, Craig Gorbanoff, aka Producer Craig. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. May you win all your photos.
Just me.